And welcome to this recording of Battle of the Apps. In this series, I invite app developers and users to talk about their favorite solution and, of course, to tell you how it can make a positive difference to your business. I am your host, Pascal Fintoni, and today I'm joined by the founder and creator of Alitu The Podcast Maker, Colin Gray. Colin, welcome to Battle of the Apps.
Thanks for having me on, Pascal. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, not at all. So, as you may have detected from this introduction, viewers and listeners, it is about podcasting and creating podcasts. And we have with us the founder of the podcasthost.com, I believe to be the biggest and richest website when it comes to content on the web. And I wanted to ask Colin to begin with, you're about to celebrate 10 years because I think you founded podcasthost.com in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Are you still that passionate and interested by the world of podcasting?
It sounds crazy, but yeah, absolutely. I think even more so these days. I mean, back 2011, I started the site as a hobby. It was just for fun, really, because I was teaching podcasting at a university. And so it was just kind of a fun sideline thing. But these days, I get to spend all my waking hours playing around with podcasts and helping people with them. And I think the medium's only getting bigger and better. And there's more and more opportunities with, the tools, the software, the options for getting out there. So yeah, absolutely. I'm still well excited about it.
So I normally start the series with two important questions at this moment in time. Where are you and how are you doing? So obviously, I've known you from being a resident of Scotland and a fine country, if you ask me, but it's getting a little colder where currently this time of year, but you're still wearing a T-shirt. So what's going on?
Yeah, so I moved to Australia about 2 months ago in the midst of all this craziness. My wife actually got a job placement, so we moved out. She's got to do one more year of training for her. Sounds crazy. She's like mid-30s, but she's still training to be a doctor. She does actually do the proper doctoring, but for their consultancy, they have to do like one final thing. And ours happened to be in Australia, so we managed to make it out here despite cancelled flights and masks in the airports and quarantines and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm currently waiting for it to heat up because it's still not as hot as it was advertised.
Okay, well, don't complain because it's getting rather cold here. The heating is back on. So forgive me for asking, when you say we, so how many of you have moved to Australia?
Me, the wife and the kids. So me and my wife and 2 children. Yeah.
Are the kids thinking this is like the best adventure ever?
They're loving it actually. Yeah, my daughter, who's 5, was just absolutely gagging to see the koala bears. So literally the first weekend we were here and out of quarantine, we were up the hill to a local wildlife park and feeding koala bears and chasing kangaroos. It was total stereotypical Australia.
I remember when my sister came to visit with my young nephews, first trip ever, first flight, first kind of trip in a foreign country, and he was desperate to see double-decker buses. And for the entire week, we just couldn't find one. And it was like,
really?
Normally they are everywhere, right? And then suddenly,
Yeah.
so on the very last day before he went back, we found one in Durham. So literally, I jumped on and just bought a ticket to wherever he was going, just to give him a trip, for the double deckers. But you're right. So you've done well to, find them as easily, quickly as you did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we saw some in the wild as well only the week after. So yeah, we've done all right, I think, so far.
Well done. This is really surprising, exciting news for you. But back onto the reason why you are on Battle of the Apps. You created and launched a solution for podcasters called Alitu. And we're going to go into a kind of show and tell in a moment. You're going to, give us a demonstration. But before we do so, can you take us back to, where the idea came from? Because you started this as a hobby, then it became a consultancy and essentially coaching business. What was the spark where you thought, I need to also provide a solution?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we'd been running the site and consulting on it, like you say, doing quite a lot of client work for probably 3 or 4 years. And I'd taken on my first, I think actually I'd taken on 2 employees by that point, which was around late 2016. And that was when we'd been lucky enough, right place, right time, whatever it would be, to get quite a decent audience by that point. Quite a lot of people visiting our site. And one of the things we always did was whenever people would visit the site, we'd encourage them to sign up to our email list, get a download around how to start a podcast. And we always asked them a question straight away after that, which was, what are you struggling with? What are you struggling with in your podcasting? What's the biggest barrier? And 9 times out of 10, literally 90% of the time, it was around editing. It was around, you've told me to use Audacity, but I don't know what equalization is. I don't know how to put my music in there. I don't know how to, get the volumes right. There was just, you know what it's like, Pascal, like even doing video, it's the same. You've still got to work with the audio, don't you? It's like getting all those things. It's not too complicated once you know it, but there's still a lot to remember. There's a lot to learn in the first place. There's so many things you have to do to it. And that was what people really struggled with. It was that audio processing. So it just put it in my head that I wonder if we can automate some of this. I wonder if we could build a tool that would just take, a set of these processes, make it nice and simple and automate it. And maybe even just like, even if we could add people's music on start and the end, that would take a fair bit out of the process. That would make it a lot easier. And so we started experimenting with it. I hired a local developer in Dundee, and he was playing around with a few off-the-shelf tools that you can use for it. And after a few months, it became pretty obvious that actually there's a lot of the audio editing process can be automated. A lot of it is quite procedural, doesn't really depend on what people are uploading. And that was really where it came from. It was suddenly seeing at that point all these things that we could automate, we could make robotic. It just could happen if people uploaded the files to us. And that was kind of the spark of it. That was end of 2016, start 2017.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. And then, so from that moment on to, let's say, the launch, official launch, maybe you had the soft launch. How much time, kind of went by, and how was the work then?
Yeah, from then, so that first 3 months to the start of 2017, that was all kind of prototyping the back end. That was the technology in the back end, like how to really make all the files get processed. And from there, I hired a front end developer, start of 2017. And he was the one that was going to make it actually attractive, usable. Went from this kind of horrible machine in the background to something users could actually use. And that took a fair while. So, I mean, that took us, try to think of the actual timeline. It took us at least a year to turn it from that prototype into something we thought was launchable. I mean, we launched it in May 2018. So we're past 2 years now, which is kind of crazy, to be honest. So thinking about it, it was probably about a year and a half from the first kind of gestation of the idea to through beta testing, through launching it to 20, 30 users, and then commercializing it, then actually putting it out for paid consumption.
I think there's almost a lesson in there for, kind of independence like you, patience, just keep going, stay the course,
Yeah. I mean, our initial plan, I do remember our initial plan was to get it out in the winter, the autumn to winter of that first year. So I had been hoping October, November 2017, that would have been, wouldn't it? And it was something like 6 months later than I had hoped that we eventually got it out. But I think you're right. There's ways we could have tried to rush it. We could have thrown a bit more money at the problem. We could have taken on a few more developers. We could have made a few shortcuts, but the position, I was a bit lucky in the position that we already had an existing business that was profitable, that could pay for it. So we weren't on a timeline. We weren't burning our money. And actually it made me a bit frugal because I didn't want to take on extra funding. So I didn't want to throw money at the problem or take on more developers. So that I think it helped us in the long run. It took a bit longer, but we got there with a better product that was more well thought out and less rushed.
Okay, so let's not wait any longer. If you're happy to move on to a screen share mode, I just made you a co-host, and then just take us through the platform, and then I will ask you some questions as well.
Yeah, sure thing. Is that popping up okay now?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Perfect. So this is the kind of front end of Alitu. This is the episode screen. So these are all the episodes that I've made in the past wee while. I mean, the core of it really is add an episode. So this up here on the left here, you can add an episode. We've just recently launched a call recording as well, actually, Pascal.
So, I must ask you about this later on, yes.
Yeah, so this is actually in beta right now. So it's not fully public, but we have talked about it a bit. So it is public that we're doing it, but it will be out very soon properly. But yeah, it's working anyway. But anyway, creating an episode, all you do is put in your name, I can always never type when I'm on camera. Save episode, and basically you can upload your files here. So if you do record in the app, You can record straight into the app, either solo recordings or that call recording, like I said, or you can drop files in here if they record from anywhere else. A lot of people use Zoom, like we're on Zoom right now.
Yep.
So a lot of people take Zoom calls, they drop them in, or from a Facebook Live or anywhere else. And what happens when you bring one in, then it gets added to this little queue. You can upload a few at the same time. And when you click upload, that means that file is then taken away to get processed. Processing means it's cleaned up. So it does noise reduction, dynamic leveling, hum reduction, and converts all to the right stuff for working with, really. So all of those processes are done for you in the background. And we're working on more of them now as well. So we want to do everything. We want to do more in terms of EQ, compression, plosive reduction, all that kind of stuff. So that's all coming soon. And then you get to the episode builder. And here you can put together all your clips. You can add in like common segments. You can add in your adverts, and you can drag and drop things around. And your music's added automatically here too. So this is my default intro music. I can listen to that there if I want to, add different music. And we've also got a free music library as well. So if you do not have any music, you can choose something from our free library here too. And we do the fades as well. So you can cut your music to 12 seconds and overlap it by 3, for example, if you want the music to fade out as the voice is coming in. You've also got episode details here. So that's all the metadata, that gets carried through to the podcast host. And we do editing as well. So all of this part is the automated stuff. So the cleanup, adding your music, the fades, all that kind of thing. But the one thing that people do themselves still is actually cut out their mistakes. I'm afraid we can't take out the ums and the ahs and things like that quite yet. Oh, never know in the future.
Actually, just on that, I mean, as a experienced podcaster, how do you feel about ums and ahs? Do we need to, essentially forgive ourselves a little more and be human, or do you want us to in future clean up?
No, that's exactly it. I think, but there's 2 parts to it. I think part of it is giving yourself a break. Everybody does it a little bit, everyone does a bit of an and an ah, and cutting them all out actually makes you sound almost too perfect. Like you say, it stops you being human and identifiable. And the other part really is the best thing you can do about it is just be aware of it, practice it, and stop doing it.
Yeah.
If you're actually aware of it, you can improve your speech. You can think about it. You can take a breath instead of umming and ahhing. Once you're aware of it, once you have it in mind, it's actually not that hard to get rid of them altogether. So better to do that than have to edit them every time. But in the editor here, if you do want to edit things out, what you can do is press play, you can preview things, and then you can drag and select parts. And that's an edit point that I can then move around, and I can preview it, click before it, press play, and it simulates what it'll sound. And you can cut clips in half as well, put in as many edits as you want. So that's how you actually edit the clips. And then final step is just to export. So once you export, that's it now processing. It's creating that final episode, putting the music on, adding in the fades, cutting out those mistakes, and then it's ready. And from there, we actually link in. You can download the file if you want to download it and put it somewhere yourself, or we can publish to quite a few of the podcast hosting platforms out there. I think you mentioned you were going to talk to Mark on this episode. We've got Captivate linked in here, we've got Podbean there, but we've got all these others too. We've got Blueberry, Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Spreaker, and more being added in all the time too. And the final little icing on the cake, I suppose, is you can create a video from it as well. So if you do an episode, you want to create a video to stick on YouTube or elsewhere, you can press that and it turns it into a video that you can input wherever you like.
Out of interest, I'm a video guy, so I'm going to quickly ask, what does the video look like?
So do you know, right now, you wouldn't be proud of it right now, Pascal, as a top quality video guy. Right now, we don't have many options in there, actually. It's kind of it's a good basic feature for people that want to get it out, but there's no real customization. What we do is we put a standard background behind it. We put the title of the episode on it and a sound wave. So the sound wave moves. So you do get a dynamic wave. In the near future, though, we want to make it customizable so that you can put your own background on it. You can put your artwork in it, stuff like that. But right now, it looks totally great. It looks lovely. But we want to add a bit more customization in the future too.
Oh, super. So can we go back to, you had the preview, almost like with the different segment. It was very visual. It looks actually lovely. Yeah. Got a few questions to ask you on that. Yeah, sure. So when I set, the account on Alitu, are there some kind of almost pre-formatted? So, the teaser trailer is always there, the intros and outros are always there in a set, and then I just add the new segments on that.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a template you have really. So
Mm,
you see this is kind of if I take out that clip as well. So this is the basic template. You have one clip which you've uploaded, and then you've got an empty music segment, an empty outro music segment. If you then add in your music, you add in an intro music, that puts the teaser on the start as well, because the
yeah.
teaser is really just a little clip you put in before the music to tease the content of the episode, and the music for the end as well. So yeah, that's it essentially. Yeah, just a template that you can then fill in.
Sure. At this moment in time, how many templates can you have? Can you run multiple series at the same time?
Do you know that's something we're looking at? No, not right now. But what I want to do is make it so that you could. Do you know it's an interesting idea actually? Because right now we're looking at running different podcasts. So you say you run 3 different podcasts, you might have different intro music, different templates for each one. But the fact that you might want to do a different one for each season is another idea. That's something I hadn't thought about. But
Mm.
yeah, it would work the same way.
Super. Can you take us through the recording a call? So let's say that we don't have the audio, but we're going to be recording the call through the Alitu platform.
Yeah, sure. So click record the call. It's really simple, actually. So we've kept this deliberately quite minimalist. There's a lot of dedicated call recording platforms out there that really go deep on this. Allowing you to schedule them ahead of time, all that kind of stuff. But really, what we wanted was something for people to really quickly and easily record something with a co-host or a guest. So we've got, you put in your name, choose your microphone, invite people, just gives you one link that you can reuse all the time. So you can send that out. You can say, every Wednesday at 5 p.m., we're going to meet on this link, pop into it. Or it can be one-off use as well. If you hit start, opens up the call window, and that's us now recording.
Right.
And as soon as somebody else, so if I opened up, I wonder if I could do that very quickly. If I put that link in a different window, so I'm typing that in an incognito window you probably can't see, but hopefully in just one moment, it will pop up with, if I click allow, it'll pop up with a second person in this window, and you'll see that there'll be another guest there just in 1 second. Yeah, there we go. So just loading in with the guest now, and that's 2 people now.
Nice.
And you can have more than that too. So you can have, I'm gonna get an echo. Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go. Closing it down. So yeah, you can have. Right now, we've got a limit of three or 4 people.
Sure.
We're kind of changing at the moment, just testing things. But there's no reason we couldn't have more than that actually. So, but it's generally used for 1 or 2 people to invite in. And we've got a chat there as well, just in case you have to ask some questions while you're talking away. But that's what we've got for the moment, and we're interested to launch it and just see what people want us to add in. Because it's like I say, it's quite minimalist at the moment, but it gets the job done. It creates that call, records that call, good quality, straight into Alitu so that you can edit it. And I'm interested to see what else people want with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it out.
Smashing, really, really interesting. And I love the way in which, you and your team will know so much about podcasting and podcast production, and yet you've gone straight for the essentials. And I'm absolutely sure there's some amazing stuff going on behind the scenes, but with respect to content creators, we don't need to know that stuff.
That's exactly it. Yeah, absolutely. We do client work. We do the full shebang for people doing all the production, like every process under the sun. But we're trying to apply as much of that knowledge to the back end as we can. Hide away the complexity so that content creators can worry about the part that they do best, which is speaking, creating the content, engaging their audience, and not worry about the tech. That's the whole plan.
The element that you mentioned very briefly, because again, it's behind the scene, which is the cleaning up of the audio. Yeah. Is that done through essentially years and years of experience? So the parameters and how to go about it, and you program that in advance.
Yeah. It's really interesting actually. I've learned so much through developing this over the last couple of years, and working with people far smarter than me as well, who know audio inside out. And some of the modern technology that I sound really old-fashioned now, don't I? Modern technology these days, but some of the modern tools now for working with audio and doing machine learning on the data sets that we have. Like we have about 1,600 active users right now, and we've had another 1,000 or so that have been through the app outside of that. So we've got nearly 3,000 people who have all uploaded dozens of files. So we've got tens of thousands of audio files that have been uploaded to us. So we've got a really big data set of types of audio people use for podcasting. And we're using that really to train a model to be able to figure out how to improve people's audio the best it can. And that's really what's happening. Actually, there's tools there that we can use, but we have to train them. We have to train them in certain types of audio, which is podcaster audio, really, the way podcasters generally create it. And it's fascinating, and you can do so much with it. Actually, it's surprised me how much improvement you can make through automated processes with just a little bit of that background training.
No, excellent. Can you remind us where we can go online to learn more about Alitu?
Yeah, sure thing. It's just over at alitu.com, alitu.com, and you'll see the front page right there, where it'll show you a bit more detail about everything that Alitu can do. You can see a little demo video there too. So yeah, by all means, it's a 7-day free trial if anyone wants to.
Oh, right. Excellent. Well, if you have already some audio content, or indeed you could, use some audio and just understand. But I think as someone that's been involved in video editing primarily, not just audio editing, I've been on a quest for simplicity for my own clients, where they'll say to me, what do you have, or what should I purchase? I said, well, whatever you do, don't use what I do, because that's obviously at a level where I charge, for services in video production. You need to become a content marketer and you need to find something else. And in a way, I would say you're in line with, what others have done out there with just video. Quick question: how did you come up with the name and the little mascot?
The name is actually just a random word from years back. I actually bought the domain back in about mid-2000s, 2005. It was a directory website at the time that I bought for about $100 because it made $20 a month. So it was like a random side business. And I shut that down a year later, but just kept the domain. And for some reason, when I was looking at the idea that few years back, I just thought, that name, that domain, that could do really well. It just suits it. And I just had the idea about it's a robotic process in the background. We're automating quite a lot of it, but I wanted it to be friendly.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be happy, and that was where the kind of the happy robot came from, with his little smile, his cute eyes. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I really like that kind of concept, and it was a great designer back in Dundee that helped me create it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So let's get back, if you don't mind, to interview mode. And I've got a few more questions for you to ask, and then also have a bit of a fun quiz just to kind of wrap up our time together. But thanks again for this demonstration. It's been super helpful, because sometimes, and that's the intention from our community, is to kind of say just a bit more than what perhaps we can, glean from the internet. So, interestingly, although you've chosen to leave our shores, in the UK, there's been this explosion when it comes to podcast content consumption. And then as a result to which, there's been some creators. I mean, I remember reading the 2018 Ofcom report predicting that literally the consumption of audio content would just completely explode. And it was almost like a renaissance and revival of podcasts in the UK, because it was a strange history. I mean, you might know it better than I do, but I was like aware of podcasts in the early 2010s. And then there was almost like a big gap where no one was talking about it anymore, perhaps apart from you and a few others. And then 2018 seems to have been like almost like a tipping point year. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of tipping points. Podcasting is a funny medium in that it's quite high barrier, really. So it's never had that inflection point that blogging, that YouTube had video. It's never had that hockey stick growth, because it's hard to get people to listen, because there's apps involved. There's, it's quite long form. You always have to commit like half an hour or a few hours to it. So you don't get people just jumping into it immediately. But those inflection points, there was definitely a few. There was Serial, was the stereotypical show, that the first one that hit the mainstream, first 100 million plus download one. And then the fact when Apple put the podcast app on the iPhone by default, that made a big difference as well.
Right.
Because suddenly you're a podcast listener. You're like, oh, you've been listening to a podcast. The other person goes, no, what's a podcast? And you say, can I borrow your phone a second? And you can show them this app that's already on their phone that they can just subscribe to whatever they like. And so they were the two big ones. And then I can't even put my finger on what it is in the last year or so, but you're right. Since late 2018, early 2019, there's been a big difference too. There's been a slow, steady acceleration which has made a difference. Just much more commercial money coming into it. Spotify actually have made a big difference. The amount of money that they've invested in the industry recently, that's accelerated it too.
Yeah, and obviously, I remember when Spotify bought Anchor.fm, which was also a platform that used to recommend people to try out podcasting before they move on to something. And I thought, I wonder what that means. Are they going to mess it up? And in fact, as you may have heard in the news, they released this feature where you can have your own music show where you can tap into Spotify bank of music tracks to do your own stuff.
Yes.
So it's incredible.
Yeah.
The impression people have when I speak to them, virtually at this moment in time, of course, is that because there's so many adverts now for creating your own podcast and so on, that the market is going to get obviously completely swamped. But I get a feeling that we're still at the level where the number of listeners far outweigh the number of creators. Is that still the truth?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's still only, I think last time I looked, it's like 1.1 million podcasts, but the vast majority of them are actually inactive as well. If you're talking about active competitors, you're only talking about half that number at the most. So let's say 500,000, just for the sake of round numbers, compared to number of blogs out there. Like imagine just how many blogs there are, YouTube channels as well, even video, there's way more competition. So yeah, it's still a very open field. And do you know the biggest proof of that too is the fact that if you go and search for a topic, if I get interested in something, or if I'm talking to a client that's starting to talk about something, I'll quite often go and search a topic and still only find 1, 2, maybe 3 podcasts on that topic. There's still a lot of topics out there that are very, very lightly covered, if at all. You try that with blogging or YouTube, like search any topic and you'll get a million results. So still very, very open.
Yeah, no, I would say so. The question I have for you as well, as someone that's been doing it for quite some time, from a hobby to now a business and a platform, is for me, content creation go through a series of maturation process. And I think, for the last few years for the new entrants, it's almost discovering your true voice and discovering maybe a new format and whatever. So people would usually begin with, either the solo series or with a guest series. I wonder whether this, we're working towards something far more exciting. Are you seeing anything on at this moment in time that you also are getting quite impressed or excited about in terms of production?
Do you know, that is one place where podcasting does. It's a pro and a con how free and easy podcasting is. The fact that people will listen to one person speaking for 3 hours about history. So Dan Carlin's show, Hardcore History, 3 hours, just him. He's got a good mic, so he sounds good, but there's nothing in it. Like he edits it for sure, but there's not even any music. There's no production value at all. But the story is just so good. So the honest answer to that is not really. Like still the vast majority of the popular shows out there, the great shows out there, are very basic. Because really the value in podcasting is the personality. I think for sure there's a lot people can do to differentiate themselves and be unique with a bit of production, segments, even just planning a show with a bit of structure. That's what I get excited about actually, when I see a show that has a bit of structure, a bit of planning behind it. And they actually say at the start of the show, right, today we're going to talk about this, this, and this, and we're going to cover this segment as well. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. Now I know what's coming. It's not a norm in podcasting. So even just that little bit of planning, that little bit of structure can make a real difference to how engaging, how listenable your show is, I think.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it's just arcs back to my work as a trainer and mentor. I've got to have a structure to let people know what on earth they're getting themselves into if they're coming to a workshop or to whatever. So, final question for you. What are the plans then for Alitu, but also what are the plans maybe for the future for the podcasthost.com?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the big plan is really to just keep moving towards being this resource that is the ultimate place to go for anyone who wants to start a podcast. We want really to put everything in there that anyone could need, so that they don't need to go anywhere else. So we're just going to keep putting out good content, more video as well. Actually, you'll be pleased to hear Pascal's doing a lot more YouTube these days. And actually, one of the big plans for the next 6 months is partly it's getting that call recording out there, really trying to test that, and that'll help people. Alitu will then be the only place you need to go to create your podcast. because you can record, edit, produce it, get it out there, and then you take it to a publisher. So the publishing we're not doing at the moment, but we're looking to hopefully tie into one or more hosts more strongly as well. So that it's even easier for that. Maybe bringing some stats back into Alitu, something like that. So it's more integrated. But you mentioned the coaching, the training, the education side actually is a big part for me, because one of the biggest barriers still with people who join up with Alitu, it's not even the technology, it's not the editing. We've kind of helped with that. It's all the other bits. There's all these other bits that we can't really we don't cover right now. And what I want to do is make it so that when you join up with Alitu, you get the education as well. So it's all the other stuff around it, how to be a good presenter, how to create good content, all the things that go around the editing and production, so that Alitu will help you do it, but will also help you learn how to make a successful show alongside that.
Yeah, smashing. Thank you very much. Well, to our viewers and listeners, whether you're an aspiring podcaster or a regular, do pay a visit to the podcasthost.com, one of the biggest and richest blog on the interweb as far as I'm concerned, but also say hi to Colin and give him some feedback on Alitu. But before you go, Colin, I would like you to take part in a bit of a fun quiz. Well, fun for me anyway. You'll tell me afterwards. Simple questions so we can get to know more about Colin Gray. Let me begin with asking you, if you could have a Zoom call with a famous person, be it from the world of science, entertainment, or business, who would your guest be?
Do you know what I would? Being in Australia, I'm actually getting quite into surfing, so I'd love to go and. I was watching a surfing documentary with Kelly Slater the other night. I'd love to meet up with him and just have a beer and talk surfing and learn how to get better at that. That'd be cool.
Excellent. Well, no point teasing us more with your surfing and fine weather in Australia. But let's move on to, if you could have your own private online concert, perhaps on Facebook Live, for you and your family, who would be the artist or the band that would play for you?
Oh, good question. My favorite band in the world is the Presidents of the United States.
Okay.
Sang Peaches and all sorts of other great songs. So yeah, I'd love to see them. That'd be great.
Super. Well, since you're having the pleasure of this online concert, let's get some food organized. So what food would you order for you and the family?
My favorite food, no question, is Thai. I love Thai curries.
Right.
And I spent 2 weeks in Thailand a while back, and I'd love to go back.
If you could have your own radio show, and perhaps indeed you have, what would you talk about and who would be your co-host?
Ooh, I would. The other thing I'm into at the moment is I love going to the gym. I'm a CrossFit fan, so I go and do a lot of lifting and workouts and stuff like that. So I like talking about that. It's great talking about all the different gear and the techniques and stuff. And the current CrossFit champ is Matt Fraser, so I'll get him on. Talk to Matt Fraser on the show about CrossFit.
Super. Final question. Now, normally this question I get people to think about it, but you may have done this. So I usually ask people, when this is behind us, mentioning obviously the current crisis, we'll be able to travel more freely. Where would you like to go? But you've been already, so I'm not sure. Are you happy where you are? No plans to move on again?
I am, yeah, I feel very fortunate that I've managed to go somewhere during all this. Do you know what? I am looking forward to, I'm loving being here. I'm looking forward to the year here, but I'm already missing things about home. So I'm actually, it's a pleasant thought to think about coming back to the UK, meeting up with, you and the rest of the guys. And maybe we'll eventually get that game in that we always keep talking about. So maybe that's it. My plan is to get back to the UK and come down your way and, getting that game of D&D or something like that.
We have to that. Yeah, for our recent listeners, we've been threatening for I don't know how many years now to get the band together again and play Dungeons and Dragons and just relieve our misspent youth. So it'd be great. We may have to do it as a podcast show. Who knows? Colin Gray, thank you so much for joining Battle of the Apps once again. For people who have more questions about Alitu and podcasting in general, where can we find out more about Colin Gray?
The best place to go really is the website. So it's thepodcasthost.com, and our big guide on how to start a show. If you want to start, host.com/start, and that's the place to go for it. It links out to all of our other guides and Alitu and everything. So best place to start.
I mean, generally, I would recommend people do. It's an amazing, kind of treasure trove of information for podcasting. But actually, if I may say so, a wonderful example about how to approach content marketing. So do give it a go. Thank you very much again, Colin. To our viewers and listeners, thank you for your support. Do leave your suggestions, feedback, and comments in usual places, and continue to go out there and make sure that you create better content faster. Bye for now.